watching Cron On, streaming now from Cron 4, the Bay Area's local news station.
It was 1 year ago this week. Congress was in session working to certify the results of the presidential election when rioters breached the Capitol in what would turn into a very deadly insurrection attempt. Joining us to talk about the events of that day and the ongoing investigation is South Bay Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren. Thank you very much for taking some time out and talking to us about it.
Sure.
So tell us about the status of the investigation and some key pivotal issues for you that you've learned.
Well, we've learned a lot. We've interviewed over 300 witnesses. We're edging up to 40,000 documents that we're looking at, but there's more to do. We have focused not just on the day itself and the violence and how that was organized, but the other events. I mean, this wasn't just random violence. There was an intentionality to this. The intention was to install as president the candidate who lost the election and to depose the winning candidate, really overturning our constitutional system of government. So that is actually more serious assault than just the violence aimed at the members of Congress and the Senate and the vice president. It was an attempt to really overturn our government.
There's so much in what you just said that is alarming. I mean, we were talking about violence at the Capitol. We're also talking about overturning our government. What would you say to those people who are the naysayers saying that this is all just politics at work?
They need to open their eyes and look at the facts. And that's what the committee is working on. We wouldn't want anybody to take what we're saying as on a basis of trust. We are going to provide the information that is clear and truthful. And all we ask is that Americans free their mind of ideology and rhetoric and spinning and just look at the facts and understand the truth.
There is a lot of identity politics that are going on right now. So that is something, as you were mentioning, as far as having those facts to look at. I understand that we could be moving towards public hearings. Will you think that that would provide a good platform for people to hear what you guys have been able to uncover?
Well, we will, of course, be having a public airing of what we are discovering. What we want to do is to have a coherent presentation. You know, when you're doing an investigation, you don't do every interview in public. Some of it is tedious, some of it is boring, some of it is not. And so we will be putting together not only the testimony, but the documentation that will let people see what actually happened. The other thing that we're waiting for is access to the National Archives. We asked for the information that is in the archives. The former president sued. He lost, as he would say, bigly in the trial court, who basically said there's no basis whatsoever for his case. Then he went to the appellate court, where he was completely shut down. Not only was there no basis for his case, but they said he didn't even meet the minimum requirement under the law for asking injunctive relief. Now he has asked the Supreme Court to issue cert. We've asked them to make an early decision. There's no basis, there's no need for them to do that. There's no division among the circuit courts. You know, you could imagine a situation where a former president had a valid claim, but that's not this case. And we're hoping that they act swiftly, decline the case, and then we'll get through a substantial amount of information that will accelerate our progress, we think, quite quickly.
Is it possible that subpoenas could be issued for the vice president as well as the former president?
Well, we're not ruling anything out, but we haven't made decisions on those things. Honestly, we're looking to get the truth as quickly and cleanly as possible. The former president's MO is to engage in litigation to delay things. He's done that all his life, even as a private businessman before he was in elective office. So we're not looking for litigation. We're looking for facts. We're looking for the truth. And we're looking to inform ourselves as well as the American public, and then to come up with proposed legislation that might make it more difficult for something like this to happen in the future.
Congresswoman, 7 people died. They lost their lives in the insurrection. The president and the vice president plan to speak on January 6th in a couple of days. What do you think is important for the country to hear as these speeches and this day unfolds?
Well, I don't know, obviously, what they're going to say, but I think it's important for the public not to be spun. There are some elected officials who are trying to pretend that January 6th was just an ordinary peaceful demonstration. It was like a tourist event. That's obviously ridiculous. It's just complete lie. I think people need to focus on the facts, understand and confront the threat that it posed a year ago and the continuing threat that we face today, and make sure that we keep in mind that our American constitutional democracy needs to be protected. And that's really what's at stake here.
Is it also important to unpack the people that were involved? There has been a lot of talk about the political group of Antifa, and there's been lots of finger pointing about this and that. Is that also a part of the investigation?
Well, there's no evidence, not a single piece of evidence, that these were anything but Trump supporters. And, you know, it's clear from the text that was sent to the White House that day, the members of Congress who texted the Fox News reporters, they knew that these were followers of then President Trump, and they called on him to call off the dogs. That's what this was. And to try and pretend it was something else is a real disservice to the American public.
Well, we will look forward to hearing more about the 300 people that have been interviewed and the 40,000 documents so far. Let's turn to some other issues that are really quite pivotal as we start the new year. What's going on with the Buildback Better bill? And then when we talk about the filibuster, is that something that is going to be changed, altered, dismantled? What's the status of all that?
As you know, this is the Senate's business. As a member of the House, I don't get a say in it. I have an opinion, however. The voting rights provisions are really essential if we want to preserve our democracy. As I'm sure people may be aware, there are certain legislative bodies that have replaced the nonpartisan election officials with essentially partisan hacks, so that they can presumably override the actual votes and install who they want, their preferred candidate, not the voters' preferred candidate. That can't be allowed. And the Freedom to Vote Act that the Senate has would prohibit that. The elections need to be clean. They can't be partisan. They have to just, you know, the votes get cast and then they get counted as cast. That's all that should happen. We know from Senator Schumer announced just today that there is going to be an additional effort on January 17th to proceed with this. He indicated that there could be adjustments in the filibuster rule. I don't think it's in the cards that the Senate is going to eliminate the filibuster, but it's worth remembering that over the decades, minor adjustments have been made that will allow the Senate to proceed to debate and to act on various measures. This would not be the first time. And so I'm hopeful that they can act on the voting rights measure, because it is absolutely essential that we get our democracy protected in this way. I'll just say, in terms of Build Back Better, you know, we've hit a snag. The House sent over what we thought was a good bill. Senator Manchin. We have a 50-50 Senate. Any Democratic senator essentially has a veto over any Democratic legislation, and he has indicated he doesn't like what we sent over. President Biden has indicated that he's going to work this out and get an important measure through. I hope that's the case. Certainly, we thought what we sent over was good, but there are other things that could be done that would be helpful to the American public. You know, it's very interesting that people rant and rave, they put labels on it, but you know, this is not radical stuff. To have the capacity, if you've got a newborn or a dying relative and you have to go home to take care of them, to have parental leave that's not a wild idea. Most countries in the world have that. To have pre-kindergarten, we know that pre-K actually prepares young children to be successful in kindergarten, and you can measure the difference actually to adulthood. So that's something that most countries do, and that's also in the bill.
And the child tax credit, correct?
Absolutely. Child tax credit. Why should only the rich have tax credits? Regular families, working families, should have an opportunity to get some benefit in tax credit, as well as the provision about childcare. You know, the childcare sector of our economy has been decimated by the pandemic, and it's costly. It's been, a lot of providers have gone out of business. We need to rebuild that, not only for the sake of children, but for the sake of parents. If you have small children and you don't have daycare, you can't go to work. And we know that there is help wanted signs across America. Well, take a look at the childcare situation. If you're a mom with a 3-year-old and no childcare, you're not going for that job interview.
Absolutely. So I would be remiss if we wrapped up and I didn't ask you if you didn't have any New Year's resolutions, goals that you wouldn't mind sharing with us.
Well, I have a goal to do my very best to bridge partisan divides in the House of Representatives and in the country. The divisions that we have in the United States right now don't even make any sense. And they're certainly damaging and dangerous to our future as a country. So I'm going to redouble my efforts in that regard.
Well, we are always very proud to be able to take the time and to chat with you. So thank you very much for taking the time. And we wish you all the best of luck of persevering. And we will look forward to more on the report.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.